Hi students and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from Hungary here in Central Europe. I hope everybody has had a fantastic weekend and is looking forward to a nice relaxing weekend, and I meant fantastic week. Students, in this class, we are focusing on listening, specifically for the difficult questions in sections 3 and 4 of the listening section. This is the exam continuing on from yesterday. Hi, Gurbaksh. Hi, Hikmatillo. Violet Newen. And good to see a member, Hassan, in class on time. Fantastic. This lesson is brought to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS, check us out there. And for the general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com. On both of those websites, we have loads of materials to help you improve your band scores and meet with success the next time you sit your exam. The websites, they look like this. This is the academic. We will be using this one a little bit today for the listening audio. You can click that big red button to join us there. And for the general, it's the green background. Click that red button to join us there. Hi, Carissa. Good to see another member in the class. And hi, Ravinder. Good to see some of our regular students. Download our apps from your Apple app and Google Play stores. Look for our logos, Academic IELTS Help, to download our Academic IELTS app, and General IELTS Help. Look for this logo to download that app. Join the app or link it with your web account, and you can learn from one place, either through the app or the website, for some fantastic IELTS learning experience. If you have questions, you can send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. I will do my best to respond promptly. And if you're looking for some paper-based exam books, it's a good idea to get them, especially if you're doing the paper-based exam as opposed to the computer-based. Then you can find our books on Amazon. Just search for AE Helps Academic IELTS and GE Helps General IELTS. So today, we have this listening section 3 and 4. We'll start it off in just a minute. And tomorrow we'll have questions and answers for members regarding the IELTS. So members, if you have any questions, think about them over the course of the next 24 hours. Write them down so you have some questions prepared for tomorrow's Q&A class, okay? And then for everyone at the same time tomorrow, we will have a speaking part 2 cue card strategy and example so that you can improve for that section. All right, everyone. So here we go. We're going to get right into it. Please get your pencils and papers ready. Please do not write your answers into the chat. I'm just going to log into the online web account for the audio here. And this listening test, it's a continuation from yesterday. So it's coming from our second book, exam number 5. So we will go to our audio CD. I know this is a little bit bright. The background is bright here. But don't worry, the listening will not be that bright. All right, so again, students, we're going to be continuing here with listening section 3. Volume is maximum on my side, so make sure to turn up the volume on your end and use a headset if possible. Importantly, students, again, let everybody answer for themselves. Don't put the answers into the chat. We will go through the answers together at the end, okay? So don't freak out. You will have the answers. I will go through them with you, okay? So, ready, set, and here we go.
Now turn to section 3. Take some time to look at questions. 21 to 26. Listening, Section 3. You will hear a forum discussion between the moderator and two contributors, Dr. Rachel Young and Dr. Ronald Sturgeon, both political scientists at the local university, talking about trade between countries. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Young and Dr. Sturgeon for taking the time to spend this afternoon with us.
Thank you for having us here today.
Dr. Young, could you give us a little background on the topic of free trade and protectionism, a little history?
Well, countries and nation-states have been participating in free trade schemes for millennia. The ancient Egyptians, for example, participated in trade with the Arabians across the Red Sea over 3,000 years ago. The Roman Empire imported many goods from outside their lands, especially luxury goods such as silk, which were only available in China. Free trade, however, though, has much younger roots.
Could you define free trade and protectionism for us, Dr. Sturgeon?
Free trade is trade between countries without taxes, tariffs, or other regulations attached. Without a free trade agreement, nations charge taxes or tariffs on goods that are imported to their country. This is to protect the manufacturers within their country. If country A, for example, produces a product for a 20% higher cost than country B, country A is likely to impose a tariff on the importation of country B's cheaper product into country A. This is to level the playing field for domestic manufacturers. Free trade advocates want to take down this barrier. In my opinion, advocates of free trade do not care about domestic manufacturers and workers in their own country. I believe their only intention is to maximize profit for big international businesses.
I know Dr. Sturgeon is impassioned about protectionism, but what he fails to mention is that while free trade may lead to some lost jobs in certain sectors, it leads to many other jobs in other sectors. This may be cold comfort to those in, say, manufacturing or textiles, but we must not be blind to the needs of the many and be distracted by the needs of the few. Nobody says free trade between countries is perfect, but it is certainly better than a protectionist framework which costs the country jobs and prosperity. Another point I would like to make is that free trade increases competition and thus lowers the price of many goods. This saves consumers money. Purchasing a car, for example, is much cheaper under free trade agreements. While such agreements may appear undesirable for a British company such as Land Rover, since they are given price disadvantage within the United Kingdom, this is not the whole story. While it is true that the company is at a minor disadvantage within their home country, free trade agreements puts them in an equally advantageous position in other countries in which the UK has a free trade agreement.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 27 to 30.
This is a very interesting discussion. Dr. Sturgeon, from reading some of your work, I know you have some ethical concerns about free trade.
Yes, I have a number of ethical concerns. First and foremost, free trade agreements incentivize highly unethical sweatshops. When countries such as the United Kingdom enter free trade agreements with countries with lower human rights standards, we put ourselves at risk of tacitly endorsing those low human rights standards. Is the ability to wear slightly cheaper clothing really worth selling out on one of our most basic beliefs, that people should be treated with respect?
I agree with Dr. Sturgeon that human rights is an ongoing issue in free trade. Certain incidents, such as sweatshops collapsing and killing dozens of workers, have highlighted this issue in the media and public discourse, but these are isolated incidents.
Hardly. These are not isolated at all. And even if such horrible incidents were rare, does it make the conditions those workers work in permissible? Do we excuse horrible working conditions as long as the workers don't die? That's an incredibly low bar, and one I believe we must implore companies and governments to raise.
Okay, let's move on. Dr. Young, do you believe free trade betters the life of the average British citizen?
Absolutely. I believe free trade agreements make us more prosperous as a society. While not perfect, I truly believe pursuing free trade agreements is a positive step in making our world a better place.
Of course, I disagree. While I do not doubt that more wealth comes into our country as a result of free trade agreements, I believe this money never improves the life of the average citizen. The rich get richer and the middle class workers get laid off. Not to mention the ethical issues I have with this.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, students, so check your answers in that half minute, and we will go through them now. As I say, always use that half minute to check your answers. So, we're talking about free trade versus protectionism. It means free trade. The countries do not set a tax for imports and exports, or protectionism, where we have taxes on imports and exports to protect local economies. All right, students, so let's see how well you did, and we'll talk a bit of strategy as we go through these questions. Number 21, how long ago was the first record of trade between nations? Hikmatillo says 3,000 years ago. Pachu agrees. Yashkaran agrees. Yeah. And it's no more than one word or number. Okay, it should say. So 3,000 here. Okay. You can always use a number instead of the word, right? So 3,000 years. Okay. Just 3,000. Remember, it's one word or number. All right. So follow the instructions carefully. Number 22. Oh, and just a kind of a bonus question. Who was it between? So the earliest trade that they discuss, who were trading? Which nations were trading 3,000 years ago? It's kind of a bonus question here. Who was trading? Let's see how well you understood the audio above and beyond just the number 3,000. I believe it was the Egyptians and the Arabs, maybe? I think it was Egypt. Yep, that's right. So Charlie says it was the Egyptians and the Arabians that were trading among each other. Good. Good for you, Charlie Sen. One exercise, students, that you should do when you're practicing for the listening section is test your knowledge aside from the questions on the sheet. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Here we go. So here you have a flow chart, all right? When you have this kind of a flow chart, it's really important to quickly identify some key elements like 20%. So you can listen for this. And find your place in the audio. Okay. So look for key pieces of information like country B, country A. When you hear that, that's when you know that these answers will be coming soon. Okay. You hear the words country A. all of this information can be paraphrased. It means you might hear different words. But when you see a name or a number, usually you will hear them say that. Now, especially when you see these kinds of quotation marks, okay, that means that you will definitely hear this piece of information. So be ready. All right? Okay, so country A produces a product for 20% higher cost than country B. A company in country A imports the product. If the country does not have a free trade agreement, the company must pay something. Yeah, so Hikmatilla says use some logic there as well. And the answer is tariff. Absolutely. Tax is okay. It's a perfect synonym for the word tariff. Okay, so must pay a tariff to import the product. This is to level the playing field for someone or something. It's got to be a noun, so pay attention to the word form. This is going to be a noun in this case. Number 23, who are we leveling the playing field for? So the playing field is being leveled for whom? Okay. Why does a country create taxes on imported goods? Hikmatilla says it's for domestic manufacturers. Jatin Seth says it's domestic manufacturers, and it looks like a lot of you agree. Yeah, domestic, of course, is the opposite of foreign. Know this word, okay? It's the opposite of foreign. So domestic, another way to think of domestic is the same as local. Okay, it equals local. Okay, so domestic manufacturers. I'm going to write that underneath. Manufacturers should be plural. Okay, because it's not just one domestic manufacturer, it's multiple. Okay, so you need both words here. Here, notice the instructions say no more than 2 words and or a number. So domestic manufacturers. Okay, not importers, Lee. Importers is different than manufacturers. Importers means you bring in the product. Manufacturers means you produce the product. Okay, so tariff, domestic manufacturers. Pay attention to key elements in the flowchart so you do not get lost in the audio. Okay, does that make sense? So pay attention to key elements, especially for this flowchart type question, so you do not get lost in the audio. Okay? All right. If the countries do have a free trade agreement, the company does not have to pay to import the item. Some advocates of protectionism believe free trade advocates are only worried about maximizing something for large companies. What are they trying to maximize? Okay, Carissa says it's profit. Hassan says it's profits. Both actually work here. So maximizing profit or profits for large companies. In this case, you're lucky because plural and singular makes sense. It's not always the situation, so be careful. Plural is a little bit better, but both make sense, okay? So profits, both profit and profits work in this situation, but do be careful. If you don't see a pronoun, if you don't see an article like a or un or the, try to think more plural, okay? So if you don't see that the or or on, think about plurals, okay? It's a better idea. In this case, both are okay. Profit, profits. All right. Next 2 questions. It's completing the sentences. In complete the sentences, pay really careful attention to the information that's available so it makes sense. For number 25, you have to get both of the spaces correct, of course. Some people will lose their jobs under free trade agreements, but we must emphasize the needs of the something and not be sidetracked by the needs of the. So, David, good job on getting 8 in the listening. That's fantastic. So here it's many and few. Very good. So for question 25 on your answer sheet, when you have 25, just put many and few. Make sure you don't accidentally put few, comma, many, because you'll get it wrong. The order has to be correct in this case, okay? So it's many and then few, all right? So that's the answer for that one. All right, let's keep going. Number 26, free trade lowers the price of many goods because it increases what? So what does free trade increase? If you use your logic, you can probably guess this question. Students, logic lets you guess anywhere from 30 to 50% of the answers in reading and listening, but you have to use very good logic. Okay? All right, Hikmatillo, Hassan, Jaskaran, Shivang, Jatin, Anisha, Hikmatillo, they're all saying competition. Sirojidin, make sure you have the correct word form. It's competition, not competing. Should be the noun form here, so it's competition. Okay? So it increases competition. Yeah, absolutely. If there's no tax and I can export my products to other countries and so can others, there are more competitors, right? There are more companies competing for buyers, so it increases competition. Now here we have a table. So in tables, pay close attention to the headings of each column, okay? In this case, the first one is the cause and effect. So when you're looking at this kind of a table where you see cause and effect, then you're listening for words like as a result or because, since. Okay, all of these words will indicate that cause and effect relationship. Okay, Hikmatillo, yes, you can use synonyms to get the right answer as long as it's an exact synonym, like in the beginning, tax for tariff. Okay, all right. So enter into free trade agreements, jeopardize human rights standards. Sweatshops collapse. The conditions are highlighted. Highlighted means emphasized. In the something. This is a noun, of course. So where do we see that? Where do they show pictures of people working in terrible conditions? In the media, yeah, newspapers, TV, internet. So it's the media. Okay, the media shows these bad conditions that many people have to work in. Okay, Dan Zhang, this is the second exam book and it's test number 5. Okay, test number 5. All right, the realization that such incidents are not isolated implore companies and something to raise the bar. Raise the bar means to make better. Okay, to set a higher standard. Raise the bar. Set a higher standard. So companies and governments. Yeah, governments are responsible for their citizens and their workers. Absolutely. So governments. Okay. Definitely. Good. So media and governments. Good. So far, so good. Again, pay attention to your spelling. In the 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet, double check your spelling, especially if you're writing all capital letters. Okay, it's very important. Now, here we have question 29 and 30, which is multiple choice. What did I say about multiple choice in yesterday's listening session? So I gave you a couple of really important ideas yesterday for multiple choice questions in the listening section. Anybody remember what I said as advice? I said, make sure to do this. It's the only way, especially in part 3 and part 4 of the listening section. It's even more true what I told you yesterday. Let's see who remembers what I said about these multiple choice questions in the listening yesterday. Okay, that was very important. So let's do a little recap of that. All right. So in multiple choice questions for the listening sections, especially sections 3 and 4, you must, what was it? Juan Pablo says maybe write down while listening. Juan Pablo, that was only for the multiple choice, not these kind, right? So remember, Juan, that was just when you have to choose multiple answers. So that was the multiple choice. Okay. Thanks for the feedback, Lee. I appreciate that. So again, students, remember, only for the multiple choice take the notes, not for these kinds, okay? All right. You have to, that's right, very good. So Shivang says you have to understand the conversation. Yeah, so you must focus on understanding the conversation. Come up with your own answer and find the closest match. Okay, what does that mean? That means that when I'm reviewing my notes, so in that review time at the beginning, a lot of students try to read these answers. So they try to read A, B, and C. But that's not so good because 2 of these pieces of information are incorrect. So you have to focus much more on the actual question. What you need to do is really carefully pay attention to this. What is Dr. Young's main point in advocating for free trade? So this means in the audio, before you hear it, Dr. Young is going to say, and the most important part of free trade, or the main point regarding free trade, and then comes the answer. And the answer will be likely some paraphrase of what you see here. So this is what you're focusing on in your review time, and then you're listening for that answer, okay? It's basically impossible to catch the right sentence while you're listening. It's too much information here. Okay? All right, so when we listen to that, what was Dr. Young's main point about advocating for free trade? I remember almost exactly what he said. So what did Dr. Young say? So according to Hikmatilla, it was B. So he said, free trade agreements are not perfect, but they are a good step towards increasing economic welfare. And yeah, that's what he said. He said, although free trade agreements are not perfect or not ideal, it is the right step. So he does mention that in his own words. So B was the correct answer there. Okay, so same idea for number 30. What is Dr. Sturgeon's main point? Okay, so this was Dr. Young. Okay, and then comes Dr. Sturgeon, which is obviously the other professor who's advocating for protectionism. Advocating for means arguing for. Okay, so when you advocate, it means you believe in that side. It's a good word to know for your task 2 writing as well. I advocate for this side. Okay, so what is, let's just skim up here. What is Dr. Sturgeon's main point in advocating for protectionism? What does he say? Okay. He says that it's the better way because free trade is focusing on making some people very rich and not caring about other people, right? So the correct answer is C. Okay, for number 30, it's C. All right. Okay, students, so again, remember these points that I mentioned here. And again, when you're practicing at home for these difficult sections, make sure to test your own knowledge by asking and answering questions of the audio without necessarily looking at the sheets. Now, if I get really stuck and I don't know what to do and what's going on, there's one more step that I can take. And that step is to look at the transcripts, okay? In your study materials, when you have good study materials, our materials are like this, Cambridge uses materials like this, you should have some transcripts. Transcripts means the script in the back of the book, okay? In this case, it's on page 134. And listening section 3. So here we go. I'll show you exactly what I mean here. Just bear with me a moment. So here you can see that Dr. Young says, while not perfect, I truly believe pursuing free trade agreements is a positive step in making our world a better place. That's number 29. And then Dr. Sturgeon says, the rich get richer and the middle class workers get laid off. That means they lose their jobs. So there you can check and test and see what is going on. Okay? All right, students, so now let's go back to listening section 4. So get your pencils and your papers ready. Please do not write your answers in the chat. We will answer these questions together at the end as well, or go through the answers. So here we go. Let me just jump to the right page. And again, the volume is maximum on my end. So if it's quiet for you, make sure to turn up the volume and put on a headset, okay? If you can't hear it. So I'm going to fire up the audio from our website. Again, you can do a lot of learning from the website here.
Battery 90%. Take some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listening section 4. You will hear a university lecture on the famous artist Michelangelo. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good to see you all. As you know, we're having an exam a week from today. Material from today's class will be included on the exam, but material from the final 2 classes of the week will not be included. I hope this will give you an opportunity to revise enough to perform well on the exam. With that administrative business out of the way, I'd like to begin today's lecture on the lesser-known works and endeavors of the famous Italian Renaissance artist Michelangelo. While Michelangelo is best known for his painting of the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, he was also the creator of a number of other highly respected works. Among these are the Pietà, a statue of Mary holding a deceased Jesus, and the statue David, said to be the representative of the perfect male form. But Michelangelo was not just a painter and a sculptor. One of his crowning achievements is St. Peter's Basilica, a project he was lead architect on for the 17 years preceding his death in 1564. While the basilica wasn't completed until 1626, over 60 years after his death, Michelangelo's influence on the structure was immense, as he had laid out many plans for the structure during his lifetime, many of which were faithfully carried out under the reign of future popes and future architects. Michelangelo's fingerprints are all over modern Rome, and especially what is today Vatican City. Not only through his paintings, frescoes, and sculptures, but also through his architectural achievements. In addition to his influence on St. Peter's Basilica, Michelangelo also redesigned the famous Capitoline Hill area of Rome and designed many chapels within the walls of the Vatican. Michelangelo was also tasked with a number of pet projects over the years. These projects were not one that the man himself wanted to undertake, but was compelled to because of monetary considerations or simply loyalty to the Pope. For example, when Pope Julius II ordered him to construct a 3 times life-size bronze statue of the Pope, Michelangelo had no choice but to accept. The project took up more than 2 years of his life, and 4 years after its completion, the work was unceremoniously melted down to construct cannons. Additionally, the conditions under which he was made to work were often sorely substandard. For years, he lived and worked with 4 other men in a cramped apartment with little to no privacy and no room for his creative juices to flourish. It is interesting to imagine what a genius such as Michelangelo could have accomplished given reign over his own creativity. I personally believe the world is a poor place for him having not been allowed this luxury. However, on the other hand, perhaps Michelangelo's sometimes tortured life imbued his works of art with something more than just artistic genius. Although Michelangelo is a celebrated figure for his works of art and well respected for his architectural acumen, his literary works are virtually unknown to the world. He was a virtuoso of Renaissance art, celebrated in his lifetime and venerated centuries after his death, but his writings never made an impact on the society in which he lived, nor in the years since. Michelangelo was an avid writer of poetry and found that poetry was an invaluable escape from the grind of his everyday work life, especially during the years spent arduously painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Poetry provided an outlet for his frustrations, fears, beliefs, and desires. Those who want to know the real Michelangelo must go beyond his frescoes and sculptures and dig deep into his personal writings. There, one will find a rather tortured soul, harmed by years of physical, political, professional, and personal strife.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, so that is Interesting Life of Michelangelo in section 4 listening. Now we will go through the answers together. Notice how in section 4 there are no breaks. You do not have enough time to go through all of the information in detail. So you have to look at the main information. Okay. Let's start with question 31 here. So this is right at the very beginning. You have to use the letter A if the material will be on the exam, or B if it's not in the exam. So here again, you have to pay really careful attention to paraphrasing. Section 4 has lots of paraphrasing. Okay. So material from the 3rd class of the week, is that according to the professor on the exam or not on the exam? Okay, many of you are saying it's B, which means it will not be on the exam. And you are correct. So the first one here is B. It's not on the exam. And material from the current class, will that be on the exam? So she's talking about Michelangelo. Will Michelangelo be on the class? Number 32. A or B for number 32. She paraphrases this. Instead of saying current class, she says material from this class, right? Material from this class will be on the exam, right? So this class and current class are the same, so the correct answer is A, on the exam. So it's B and A. All right, so you have to watch for that paraphrasing. In number 4 or section 4 of the listening, you really have to understand the content of what you're hearing. Okay? And don't panic, don't stress. This section is testing for band 7 to 9. All right, so we're talking about Michelangelo, the famous Italian artist. Other works, so talking about his different art pieces. While Michelangelo is perhaps the most famous for painting the Sistine Chapel, he is also famous for a number of other highly respected works, including the Pieta and the statue named something thought to symbolize male beauty. What was the correct word there? So the professor said a couple of different art pieces, including Mother Mary, right? And the statue David. That's right. Now, David, of course, is a name, so you have to use a capital D. If you accidentally write a small d, they will definitely mark that wrong, especially because it's not just a name of a person, but it's a specific statue here, statue named David. Okay? All right, far more than just a painter. Michelangelo was also an architect. He was lead architect on St. Peter's Basilica for how many years? Quite incredible if you think about it. So he's also an architect. And he was an architect for until his death in 1564. Yeah, so it's 17 years, okay? You need to have the word years. It has to be plural because it only makes sense with both of these words. So for 17 years until. Please use the number, okay? And when you're writing quickly, you might just write years like this. And then when you transfer your answer to the answer sheet, then take your abbreviation and write it out. Okay, 10 minutes transferring your answers to the answer sheet is enough to write out years. Okay, so here we go. All right. Though the structure was not completed until 60 years after his death, his fingerprints are all over the resulting structure because future something and something faithfully carried out his designs. So these are two person nouns that are missing here. And again, use logic. So who would have finished his design on the basilica if he's building this basilica according to popes and his job is an architect? So future who carried out his designs? Anybody catch that one? Yeah, so Hikmatillah, it's popes and architects, not pops. It's popes and architects. Okay, both of these are plural. So future popes and architects. Now, if you're like, ooh, I have trouble spelling the word architects, don't panic. Sometimes there's help. Right here, you see the word architect. Okay, and Hikmatillo, you're missing the E. Kavidan, you're also missing the E. But don't misspell that because, again, if you're like, well, I don't know how to spell the word pope, you can see the word pope somewhere in here. I saw it before. Here we go. Pope, right? P-O-P-E. So you know that it should be spelled P-O-P-E. And notice that it's spelled with a capital. So it's a capital P, okay? One really important trick for the listening section of the IELTS exam, especially for these more difficult sections, is use the information to help you, okay? It's very important. So use the information. Don't make spelling mistakes when you're given those words in other parts of the writing. Okay? So popes and architects, police crime, very good. All right. So popes and architects. Michelangelo's influence is also apparent around the rest of the city of something, including at the ancient Capitoline Hill site. So number 36, what city are we talking about here? What's the city that we're talking about where a lot of Michelangelo's art is preserved? And you might even know this from your own knowledge. Saul Neliar says it's the city of Rome. Yeah, city of Rome. Not just the Vatican City. Remember, Charlie Sen, that the Vatican City is inside the city of Rome. And Michelangelo's works that we're talking about here, it's not just in the Vatican City, but also in other parts of the city of Rome. So it's Rome with the capital R, R-O-M-E. Okay? City of Rome. All right? Okay, very good. Nice job. Let's keep going. Servant of the papacy. He was also a loyal servant of the Pope. Sometimes this was important work, though sometimes it was rather pointless. He once built what's 37? What did Michelangelo once build according to the request of the Pope? And Saul Neliar says, a bronze statue. Bronze statue is correct. Now, in this case, if you write just statue, they will take that, okay? But it's more accurate to write bronze statue. Bronze is a type of metal, okay? Bronze statue of the Pope. Only to see it melted down for cannon parts. All right, poor guy makes this statue, then it's made into a weapon. Cannon parts just a few years later. Moreover, the something he had to work in were often substandard. So what's number 38? What is number 38? What did Michelangelo have to work in which were substandard, not according to expectation? So going along nice and smooth here. He had to work in conditions that were substandard, right? Conditions. So the conditions he had to endure were substandard. Poonam, Yadav, good to see you in this class. All right. Here we go. Last two questions. Last two questions. Literary works. It is interesting to think what he could have made if he was given the freedom to explore his own number 39. Dan Zhang says maybe creativity. Hikmatillo, creativity. Yeah, it is. It's creativity. So creativity. Good. While his life may have been difficult, some people argue that this difficulty made him a better artist. Something was an important way to escape the difficulties of Michelangelo's life, though his writings never made much of an artistic impact. They do offer a window into his tortured genius. What was an important way? What's that last word? Nice. So a lot of people are answering poetry, Shivang. Very good, Hikmatillo. Good. Poetry. It is. Marble, very good. Poetry. Yeah, we never hear about Michelangelo's poetry, but poetry was important for him. Students, okay, especially those students that were in yesterday's class also, add up all of your marks. What did you get from 40? So count up your section 1, 2, 3, 4 marks and tell me what you got out of 40, and I will tell you what band score you would have gotten were this a real exam. Okay? So try to give me your total band score from yesterday and today. Okay? So if we go over to the website here, then at the very, very bottom of the website, you have a score calculator. This is at aehelp.com. And for the listening section, we can enter in, let me just darken the screen even more. There. Now you can see it very well. Kavi Dunn says, I got 35 out of 40. Let's check what your band score is there. So 35 would be a band score of 8. Okay, so it's very good. 35 is good. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Band score 8. So good job, Kavi Dunn. Shivang Kamar says 33. 33 is a 7.5. So not much difference. 33, 35, but it's a half band score. Okay. Police crime says, I think 31 out of 40. 31 is 7. Okay, so these are very, very close. Hikmatillo says 32. 32 is a 7.5. So from 32 to 35, you're in the 7.5 range. 35, you're in the band 8 range. Okay. Poonam, if you got 18 out of 20 in this section 3 and 4, that's really, really good. Okay. All right, students. So again, you can check your scores in the score calculator on the website. All right. Make sure to always check for your mistakes so that you can identify what's causing you difficulties and work on those. Okay. Very, very good job. I know today's class was challenging for this listening exam. You can find these exams and lots more on the websites at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. So make sure to check us out there. And also get the apps, Academic IELTS Help, General IELTS Help. I see that somebody just asked me, what time are we live, Armaan? These classes, Armaan, are Central European time, 13:30 and 15 o'clock, according to Central European time. That's GMAT plus 1 hour. Okay. All right. Keep up the good work, students. Make sure to visit our websites, get our materials, practice lots, and you will be successful on the exam. You all have beautiful brains. I'm sure of it. I know it. It's just a matter of using them and practicing. Have a great weekend. I will be here tomorrow for some more live classes. And if it's late in your country, get some rest. Have an awesome rest of your day. Bye for now. Much love from Budapest.